And hello, Sam. Excellent. Here we go. So first off, I will introduce effective altruism and effective altruism Cambridge. So in the effective altruism community, we try to answer one simple question: how can we use our resources to help others the most? One way we try to do this is by using evidence and careful analysis to think about the biggest problems in the world, and of those problems, what the most promising and neglected solutions might be, and then follow through and trying to enact those solutions with our careers, donations, and political choices. And Effective Altruism Cambridge is a community of people who follow these principles and are trying to do the most good. And we host talks such as this one, as well as fellowships, reading groups, mentoring, and socials. And if you'd like to learn more about the EA Cambridge community, please do check out our very fancy webpage where you can learn more. And now I will introduce the speaker for today's discussion, Floris Wolswijk. Floris is the co-founder of Queal, a quick meal company known for its great flavors. And he is a local EA group organizer in Rotterdam, where he lives with his girlfriend Lot and dog Max, and has taken the Giving What We Can pledge. And he hopes to do good through donations and by offering Queal as a more sustainable meal to the meals it replaces. And mental health is also one of the areas he's working on with one of his new projects, Blossom, a database of psychedelic research. And now I will hand over to Floris for this talk.
Yeah, thanks so much for the great introduction. I think I can just skip one of my slides in a moment. All right, so let me share my screen here. Yes, I'll put you guys over here. All right. So tonight I'm going to talk a bit about effective altruism and entrepreneurship. And I'll take a look at how we can combine them, or how I'm combining them. Also, what are some differences? So in what way is effective altruism maybe not per se aligned with starting your own company, being an entrepreneur? Why even be an entrepreneur as an effective altruist? And yeah, how can you apply the tools, the skills that you learn as an effective altruist as a founder of a company? During the presentation, I'll go through these points, but if you have immediate questions, you can write them in the chat, or if you can raise your hand, but I don't know if I'll see it in this format. Yeah, and I hope you'll learn something tonight about how sort of the life is as an entrepreneur who also wants to do the most good, and ways of combining it. I don't have all the answers. I probably sometimes I feel like an imposter, like, oh, why? But how could I be a person speaking about this? But on the other hand, I've been running a company for about 7 years, and I've been involved with the EA for a while. So yeah, let's start. So these are my ideas, but I also want to know what you guys want to learn. And not to penalize the guys who are on the video, I would like to ask Riemann, where Sol is present here, is anything that you want to learn or take home tonight? And I hope you have a microphone. Let's give Riemann a moment if he's available.
I've clicked ask to unmute, so he's welcome to unmute himself or themselves.
And then maybe Lynn, I also saw your name. So maybe we can hear what Lynn wants to learn or take home from tonight. Okay, now I'm going to go for, in Dutch you say driemaal scheepsrecht, which is like 3 times the charm. Tristan, I see you have a headset, so I'm going to go with you.
Sure, I guess I'm a big fan of Queal, so I'm interested to hear about it as a project. Maybe I'm also keen to hear your thoughts on the space of entrepreneurship within EA. It isn't something I thought about much.
Yeah, so and learning about like, what role EA, entrepreneurship has within EA.
yes, what EAs can do in the space.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think I'll touch on that. But if I haven't discussed it enough, then do let me know at the end. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna skip this because it's a bit difficult with only chat. But I hope there's a mix of people here tonight who come from different angles, who are students, who are maybe working at a large company, maybe thinking like, oh, do I want to start something? Yeah, maybe I don't know if you can raise your hand if you don't have a video, but is anyone looking to be or is thinking about being an entrepreneur? So if you can raise your hand or maybe digitally raise your hand, I don't know if that's possible.
Trying to figure out how to raise the hands. We've got 2 hands raised, and maybe I'd add mine if I knew how to do it.
All right. Well, it's good to hear at least that some are considering this path, but if not, I also hope that you'll learn some things that you can also use during your studies or during your career that are helpful. And of course, get a bit of a feeling for the entrepreneurial life and combining with EA. So a bit about me. So this is a bit anti-chronological. I founded Blossom, a project which where I'm working on making a database of psychedelic research. And there it also has the goal to advance the field and to make it more accessible for people who are coming in and hopefully help more people using psychedelics both as therapeutics. So for instance, NMA is going through phase 3 trials for PTSD, but also for creative problem solving. So there are some, for instance, anecdotes of Steve Jobs on an LSD trip thinking about the next iPhone, or Francis Crick thinking about the structure of DNA. So that's the project I'm working on now, and it now features about 700 papers, and they're all like interconnected, and hopefully will become a larger platform. And I'll use it as an example later on. And then for Queal, it's been running for almost 7 years. And we do north of $1 million in sales plus euros per year. And yeah, hopefully we are known, I think we are known as the complete meal replacement that's quite tasty. And yeah, we try to set us apart in that way, but also by really being for an audience that's a bit data driven, maybe I want to say geeky, IT focused, because I think that's who I am and who my co-founder also is. And yeah, so that's been going well, but we don't focus all our time on it. And I don't talk about this much in the presentation, but I think it could also be interesting if you want. I can talk about how to balance different entrepreneurial ideas, because I always have way more ideas than I have time. Some of that free time that I then still do have goes to Effective Altruism in Rotterdam, and fortunately we aren't paid, so we just spend some hours per month on preparing a meeting and diving into 2 topics. But for us, it's only 1 meeting per month. Yeah, and we're just want to say we have our meetups online. So if ever you're bored of all the awesome meetings that you have in Cambridge, then you can maybe join one of ours. We do a deep dive every 2nd month. Another month is just a social for people in the Netherlands. Yeah, and then a bit more about me. I studied psychology, so that's helpful for reading scientific papers as I'm doing for Blossom, and maybe was a bit helpful for Queal, maybe consumer insights. But yeah. I was talking before you guys joined with Debbie, and he asked me what's like the difference between academia and entrepreneurship, and what is the path that people want to pursue. I think for me it was really clear that while I was writing my master thesis, that this was not the path for me, but I wanted to really do something and see results and interact with people. So I knew then that that wasn't for me, and I'll talk a bit more about personality characteristics and that they aren't everything, but this was sort of what I would found interesting and which matched with what I did before. Sometimes write something on my personal website, but don't have too much time for it now. Do some weightlifting, and really happy that I can do that. It's outside and it isn't the best weather now, so it's pretty cold, but better than nothing. And I've taken the Give When We Can pledge, I think 5 years ago. And I'm also a member of Founders Pledge. So say in the event, if I ever sell Queal, then I'll also donate a large part of that. But enough about me. You're here for entrepreneurship. So I've looked at, thought of some ideas how effective altruism and entrepreneurship are the same. And on the next slide, of course, how they are not. And I think some of the pillars that we use within effective altruism, or how I sometimes introduce effective altruism to others, are also things that happen within entrepreneurship. And I think there's some different lingo around it, but in ways they are quite similar. And so the first one is neglectedness. And I think a way of looking at it in entrepreneurship is blue ocean thinking. I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but I think it's from Clay Christensen. It really says like you want to find a place that others aren't, a place where there's an opportunity. And the opportunity is to make a new market, to make a product that people want to have. Whilst I think in effective altruism is really like, where aren't people paying attention to, where there's a need for, where we can help. So for Queal, we were actually the second company in Europe providing complete meals, but the other company had just started, and we saw that we wanted to have another type of brand, and for instance, add those flavors. So I think that's where we saw sort of that the blue ocean where no other competitors were. For Blossom, I couldn't find a para-academic space where there was information, where there's some exploration around psychedelics. So that's why I decided to build that, and sort of also solved my own problem. Maybe that is one of the differences, that you can go after a problem you have versus effective altruism, where you're sort of solving a problem that is on a more global scale and probably for servicing other people. And then from effective altruism, I think Against Malaria Foundation really fits these three parts really well. So I think here neglectedness is that governments could be doing it, other people could step in, but no one was doing it. So Against Malaria Foundation is doing that. So then skill and scalability, importance. I think that if you look at entrepreneurship and looking at startups, I think this is sort of the hockey stick thinking like, where can we have a disproportionate impact with what we're doing? And I've written down here, like, if we solve all problems in this area, like how much better would the world be? And maybe that's a bit more profit driven for entrepreneurship, and a bit more from a do-good standpoint, but I think they're both in the same, come from the same type of place. I think for both also scalable and importance doesn't mean that it has to be scalable from the start. And I think what you probably also learn if you start with a new charity is that you want to do a lot of things manually first, but after that, seeing how you can scale it up. So for Queal in the beginning, we were like filling the bags ourselves and bringing the meals to the post office, and now it's all done at a larger scale and in a warehouse, and we don't even see our product. So I think that's also part of the scalability. And I hope also for Blossom that it's a place that can have a very large impact and influence people to better engage with the psychedelic literature. So hopefully that also is something that has an impact, that is scalable. And for Against Malaria Foundation, it's very important, and it's of course very scalable and tractable. That of course too. And from Tractable, I think one of the things I learned from being an entrepreneur is that you want to track things and you want to sort of have feedback on that. And I think that is something that really lives within effective altruism. I think now on the less wrong forum, but I think also EA forum, like there have been like predictions incorporated so that you sort of have a feedback loop on what you're doing. And I think that's also something that within entrepreneurship is also, yeah, you want to have that feedback loop every, day, week, month, seeing what you're doing, what impact it has. So OKRs, objectives, and key results is something that we do a lot within Queal, really to measure what we're doing. But for instance, for Blossom, it's a bit more difficult. You can have some objectives, but I don't know exactly where I'll make the most impact. So that also evolves over time. And for Against My Neighbors, I was really thinking of the emails you get as someone who donates. So they say, hey, it's going there to this place at this date, really making it very, very tractable. I think within, I think I might touch on this later too, but another good example I think is Wave. So that's an EA aligned company, or people from the company are very EA aligned, and they do phone remittances in Africa. And I think they also touch really well on these different points. So they went after a market that's neglected, that was really scalable, really important to do. People were paying very high fees to TransferWise, I think. So they really, that they could have an impact, and it was very tractable, like what they were doing and how they were making the world a better place. And I'll talk a bit more about like how EA, like entrepreneurship and EA can also come together. But first, how are they different? How are they not the same? So I think this quote is from Gordon Gekko, if I'm saying that correctly. But we could also say it's from Melvin Capital, which is seeing with all GameStop things. The entrepreneurship doesn't per se mean that you're doing good. I think entrepreneurship is more profit driven. And those goals don't always align with doing the most good for the world. So by being profit driven, you might have negative externalities that you're not incorporating. And sometimes companies do good on the side, but it might just be for shows, for their corporate social responsibility. And yeah, I think what makes the most money doesn't mean that it's also the way to do the most good. I think there's a bit of disconnect between, for instance, for me with Queal, I want to earn a good income, but I could maybe also optimize some processes to have even less waste, or to offset more of our footprint. So I think there's sometimes a bit of a tension between both. And yeah, within entrepreneurship, I think there's maybe a bit of a tug of war between shareholders and stakeholders. And maybe that's also something that happens within charities, because they're going after one goal. So if they're saving a part of a rainforest, there might be in the way of local farmers that want to develop that land and make money there. So maybe there also that there could be an overlap. But I think there's a us versus them thinking, us versus the world, the winner takes all, which might be suboptimal if you're looking at how effective altruists want to think and how you want to share information. But for instance, with Blossom, I try to I have all the information for free, and I try to see if I can make a model where people donate or pay or subscribe. But still, if someone is a student, if you are just browsing, if you want to get just one resource, it should still be accessible. So I try to also find a balance there. And I think closed versus open, I think especially within EA, we share everything, we share our lessons, we try to improve by being public. And within companies, I think that's something that happens less. Then at the same time, because companies are competing against each other, they would say, in the marketplace, and the one on top probably provides the best service, also means that they're really like doing their best. And I think charities sometimes aren't judged that well. But of course, GiveWell is a good counterexample who maybe provides that market and informs us as people who can't spend thousands of hours of researching each charity to see how much good they do. So why entrepreneurship? I think there are different parts to it. And this is a quote I took from the 80,000 Hours website. But as some of you might know, they are promoting this path, or the path to earn to give, less than they were before. And it might be interesting to also discuss this during the Q&A. Yeah, earning to give, I think, is a good. Yeah, I think it's I want to say a relatively low risk way of doing the most good, as in if you earn a good income, then there's a lot of money to donate. But as an entrepreneur, of course, there's a big chance to fail, and you want to put in all your resources maybe in the company. So I think it's also you have to see how you can strike a balance there. And for instance, for me, I had already taken the Giving What We Can pledge, or took it when we really started the company. So I think we put everything we wanted into the company, but from then the income I had left at the end, I then was able to donate a part, and in that way try to balance it, and also try to do good with Queal, or I'll come to that in a second. But also have the founder's pledge as something as at the end that I can have an impact. I think you learn a lot as an entrepreneur. There's a million different things that you need to do, and I think that really helps develop your skills. So I think it's a really positive thing in terms of like building your career capital, and that's also something that 80,000 Hours highlighted, that you might have broader, more interesting skills, maybe even have more fun than if you're in a corporate job. But of course, it depends on who you are and where you fit. At the same time, it's of course challenging, and you need to be open to uncertainty, to putting yourself out there, be vulnerable. And I think those are parts that should also fit you. So as a company, of course, you can also do good directly. So for instance, with Queal, we think our products are more sustainable than the average meal that people are eating. And I have some more on this on the next slide. What I wanted to say here is that your effect as an entrepreneur can possibly be larger than if you're an individual donor. So if your company has success, then you might make a larger impact than if you just pay 10% of your salary to an effective charity. So if you want to become one of those entrepreneurs, if you want to become an entrepreneur who really focuses on building a charity, then charity entrepreneurship might be something for you. So that is Charity Entrepreneurship, the EA organization. And I don't know too much about them. I've spoken to them sometimes, but they have a deadline on the 15th of April. So if you really have that burning idea, I know at least one person here today, or I think 3 people with the hands up, want to become an entrepreneur, that might be a good place to start. They I think have a really good program. A friend of mine, she went through it. So she really enjoyed seeing if you can start a charity. But yeah, also, of course, you would need to want to do that. Let's go to the next slide, because I think we're already at 24 minutes. How to apply EA as a founder. So for Queal, we think we're incorporating some of the effective altruism thinking tools into how we run the company, and how we think about which customers to reach, if there are customers that other companies aren't reaching, so that we have that sort of blue ocean for ourselves, really to measure what we're doing and seeing also how can we scale things up. And at the same time, we think that Queal is a meal that's good for our customers, because it's replacing a pizza, a meal that you grab at the university canteen on the way. So we think we're helping in that way and providing balanced energy levels. So being good also there. And I've just taken this from our website that there's very little food waste. It's a 12-month shelf life. There's no ugly cucumbers that you need to throw away because they don't look well for the supermarket. There's minimal packaging, which hopefully we can improve to be even like more better recyclable. You don't have to go to the grocery anymore. Where at least I've rewritten this on the website, where you definitely buy candy, so that's also good. And it's very efficient in the whole production process. And then if you use Queal for 2 months versus the average meat-based diet, you'll save about 50,000 liters of water, or 0.8 barrels of oil, and 90 kilograms of CO2 or CO2 equivalent. So those are also some positive effects that you have. And I think as a founder, as someone who wants to do good in the EA community, there's different ways to do it. So it can be the Give What We Can pledge, and that might be more difficult at the start. So you could, for instance, say you would try giving. I think that should be possible in any situation. And the Founders Pledge, I think, is a very smart way of framing that people will donate when there's an accident. I think they've grown really quickly to both have a big number in terms of what people will donate, but I don't know exactly where it is at now, but on top of my head, I would say it's 500 million that has already been donated by people making an exit. I think it's a cool community. I haven't engaged with it too much, but I think in the UK, there are more people who are within the Founders Pledge. At least I know I was the first in the Netherlands. And I try to just be engaged with effective altruism, to keep on learning, to read the EA forum or Less Wrong, and to engage with other people here in Rotterdam, just to, maybe I think it also motivates you what you're doing this for. Like, I'm not only being an entrepreneur for myself, but I'm also doing it to improve the world and to have money to donate and to do something good through the companies that I'm making. So I think that really is a very good combination. And finally, that it doesn't relate too much to entrepreneurship, but being vegetarian or at home vegan, it also sort of reinforces the way I look at effective altruism and how to apply it. And then in the final minutes, I've taken this also from the 80,000 Hours website for effective altruism as a career path. And I think there are two things that stood out from what they have on the page, is that if someone is an incorporated entrepreneur, so I think that's a limited liability company, I don't know if it's in the UK or at least in the US, then people on average, and also like, I would say controlling for different things, the income is higher. So for incorporated versus non-incorporated companies, a non-incorporated company would be one person who is just working alone. But I think that maybe the more interesting part of it is, and this is, isn't something that applies to Queal, like we're self-funded, but companies who are more wealth-oriented versus control-oriented, do better. And wealth-oriented here means that they give up more of a stake to get investors to invest in the company. And apparently that led to better results than someone wanted to keep control of the company, but then growing it less fast. And if you want, I can talk about how we did this for Queal also. Yeah, then I just put this on the slide, like what the different places where there are EA entrepreneurship careers. Of course, it differs per person and what your experience is. And see, the slide sort of jumped left and right, but the last one should be charity entrepreneurship. But I think there are different places where you can be an entrepreneur and sort of add positive things to the world. But yeah, this is an overview slide. Yeah, I think that's it for my talk. I'm just gonna pretend there's a big applause now. And if finally there's an EA discount. Awesome, I see digital applause. An EA discount on the Queal website. And if you're actively involved within an effective altruism community or have given a weekend pledge or even try giving, just send me an email and I'll make a at cost discount code for you so you can order at cost. I must say we're having some trouble with shipping to the UK at the moment because of Brexit. So maybe we'll wait a week or two until those things are resolved again. But yeah, hopefully they'll be done sooner than later. And if you're interested in psychedelic research, I have a weekly newsletter with sort of the top papers coming out. So yeah, that's that.
Excellent.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much, Floris. That was awesome. And yeah, great to see that the EA discount on the Queal website. I'll pop that in the chat for people to click and try out some Queal, and hopefully Brexit can pass at some point. Cool. Yeah. So let's pivot to a Q&A. So yeah, if you have a question, please feel free to post it in the chat. And also, if you want to actually like verbally say your question, just post like question in the chat, and I can then unmute you, and you can ask your question properly. And yeah, so feel free to start writing the questions, and maybe I'll kick us off. Yeah. So initial question I would have is something like, what are the biggest challenges that you've faced as an entrepreneur who is trying to do the most good?
Yeah, I think the biggest question I have is like, are you really doing good? Like, is there not another place that I could be doing more good? And I think that's always a perpetual question. Also, like where I'm donating, I'm donating also Against Malaria Foundation. Like, is that the best place to do it, or is another place? And is there more information that I need? But I think in the end, I settled on that this is something I'm passionate about, and this is something that I can have a disproportionate impact when other people aren't doing it this way. And I think, I think that sort of justifies it for me where I'm focusing on, and also it makes you think if I really did my very best to do the most good, but it would be in it's something that I wouldn't find enjoyable, then I think I would burn out fast. I think that's also what Editas I was saying more and more, like you should be enjoying what you're doing and then try to see how to incorporate the different parts. So for Queal, it means seeing like if there are some sustainability things that we can do while still being sort of a normal-ish company.
Awesome, thank you. Go for it, Sam.
Hey, so you talked about Queal being sustainable, but I looked into before the sort of environmental impacts of various things, including reusable bags, and there's just like a whole like literature on like people saying that reusable bags are worse for the environment than single-use bags, and then people countering back. And this sort of gave me the impression that like we almost just have like no idea how good or bad for the environment many products are. And so I guess I'm interested, like, what are the error bars associated with thinking that Queal is like more environmentally friendly than normal food?
Yeah, I think also the first part is interesting. Like the bags, like I think it's more the research around tote bags that you have to use them few thousand times before they're more sustainable. I think for us, for like our bags are, like for us, it's the plastic is now in one category that isn't recyclable everywhere. So we want to upgrade that. So then it should be recyclable everywhere and more easily sorted. So I think that should be an improvement immediately without much question. unless of course those bags are like 10 times more expensive, then you're back at the same problem. And then Queal versus other foods, I think for us the big reason why we're sort of confident that it's better is that we know from our customers that in a lot of times it's replacing meat-based meals. And so for those, the impact on the environment is just much larger. So we know quite well what the impact is for Queal in the different parts. And we've just calculated that against average diets and what that impact is. And for Dell, so one thing we do is for our customers in their dashboard, they can say like, this was my diet before, and then you can compare those, sort of get your personalized data. So then you could say if you're a vegetarian, like the impact will be way smaller, like the difference is smaller. And there, of course, there will probably be a lot of errors. Someone like making their own beans in the garden and growing their potatoes, like that will be even more efficient than Queal. I think there we're quite confident in that our products have quite a low impact, but at the same time, that there's of course a lot of difference between what people were eating before. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and Asa had a similar question with like carbon offsets and this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that was mostly answered.
Yeah, or if I think this is a question like we can of course keep optimizing, but then if it costs a lot of money, I don't have any money left to donate if we're like not breaking even. And yeah, I think that's a difficult thing to think about how much to do. For instance, we also give the ad cost discount, and I hope that people are doing good with that and sort of see that as extra money that they have and not splurge it on other groceries, sort of to do offset, to keep their grocery budget on at the same level. But I think sometimes you don't know exactly. I think here for choices like this, yeah, it is really seeing like if it can have a large impact. And it doesn't cost too much. So if the bags would cost 3 times as much, it's probably not worth it for being a bit more environmentally friendly. And I think we haven't done that exactly, but you could see like what the costs are and how much you would buy from that money for say carbon offsetting. Just say, okay, screw it, we'll just go with very unsustainable things, or so they say shaker you have to throw away every time. But if it's saves money, we could theoretically do it. But maybe one last thing to think about there is that it's also a bit about public image. So I think that also goes back to those tote bags. They look really sustainable. And I think that's also something to keep in the back of our minds, or in the back of your mind if you're an entrepreneur. So how it's perceived. So you might not be able to always do the very most efficient thing. But yeah, one of the things that we think do really well is explain to our customers why we're making choices. I think that really helps with having sympathy or like knowing why something is the way it is. So for instance, our labeling has some parts of Queal are labeled as sugar, but it's actually because one of the carbohydrate sources that is slower than the other, but has to be labeled as more as sugar. It's some technical stuff, but I think that really helps if we can explain that to customers and say it is to make the product better, but it does mean there's more sugar on the label, but it isn't dextrose, like the very fastest sugar, which people then don't want. So I think being transparent really helps there. Yeah, I didn't put it as one of the values, but I think transparency is something that matches between EA and entrepreneurship, but it can really be a value.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad you mentioned the sugar thing as well. That was also a thing back when I was eating Queal, and I remember seeing the high amount of sugar, and I was like, oh, interesting. But that does make more sense that it's a different type of sugar. And I didn't do enough research to find that out myself. Cool. We have a question from Tristan asking, where do you see the majority of the impact from Queal coming from? E.g., is it from the reducing the CO2 contributions from the meal it's replacing, or the animal welfare improvements, or the earning to give with donations, etc.?
Yeah, I think intuitively, I would say it's earning to give donations. Because I think that really, like, Against Malaria Foundation just really does well, and it's been going quite well for at least, like, last year was a really good year for Queal, so I was able to donate quite a lot. So I think that's really, like, you could say, it theoretically or like on average saved a few lives. I think that it's really, like, so amazing, like that you can do that as a person. But for Queal, I think in terms of animal welfare, it's more tangential, saying like, oh, people went for meat-based for those meals, and they, in that way, they're um, we're having a positive impact. And maybe also indirectly by providing the discount. I think there's more than 100, I think 140 people who have given the at cost discount to. And so last year I also tracked like how much they spent. I think it was about 40,000 euros that was saved. So I think hopefully also part of that went to donations, but that's again also more tangentially, more influence than hard facts that I know.
Awesome. Oh, Sam has another question. Excellent.
Hey, yeah, so I'm interested about Blossom, the psychedelics research thing. So first of all, is this like a nonprofit that you're running this as? And I guess I'm just curious, like, well, for one, like how you find time to do this while running Queal. Also, I guess just thoughts about like, it seems likely that psychedelic research will be kind of like overhyped, given that there's been just like so many trends in pharmacology in particular that have turned out to be very overhyped. So I guess what are your like thoughts of that, the landscape of that?
Let me just write it down. Yes, your first question about if it's a nonprofit or want to run it that way. I thought about doing it that way, but I think a lot of the nonprofits in the space are run by volunteers or rely on volunteers. And I think sometimes there's not enough momentum, not enough drive to get things done. And I think I also like working in a for-profit environment where you can sort of rely more on the time of people and to really work on things that way. And I think there could be a model where people would pay for the information from the reports and to in that way provide more information than is available in other places. I think it doesn't say X amount of people will pay 20 euros per month for access. I think you can make the business model work quite quickly. So now I'm doing a lot of things myself, but also paying a few PhD students to help with adding research papers to the database. So yeah, I think there is a model, but it could turn out in X amount of months that it isn't that way. But I have high hopes that there's a market for this type of information that people want to pay for, while still having a large part of it or have all of it for students available for free. And maybe to go to the third question about hype. I think that's something I also want to focus on, bringing things down to earth a bit more, being quite rational about it. And one of the things I want to do, which Founders Pledge has done a bit, is to do some Bayesian analysis of seeing like what do we expect this to be in X amount of years. And the Shear from Founders Pledge also interviewed Rick Dublin, and Rick Dublin also was very enthusiastic and said like, our results are HGG of 1.8, whilst 0.8 is like very large already. And she was like, no, we think it's like 0.5. This on top of my head, but like saying still a moderately high effect, but way smaller than we're seeing now. And I think that's interesting to dive into that and also see like what will be the impact of psychedelic therapies. Because I think there will be a very large market for it, but it's definitely hyped. The participants in the studies are very enthusiastic. There's a paper last month about expectancy effects, There's another paper about people going to a ayahuasca retreat, and they got a low doses of ayahuasca, but it was a very good study because it was placebo controlled, and the participants were really bad at knowing if they've gotten ayahuasca or not. So really the ceremony around it, the setting, really helped a lot too. So there's also a lot of interesting things to dive deeper into, but I want to be a bit of a para-academic place where I can provide some critical feedback, but also be a bit of a cheerleader for the space, but also be a bit down to earth, and sometimes also be critical if need be. And then time, I don't know, I don't have too many like hobbies outside of sports, and that helps, I guess. But I think for Queal, we automated a lot of things. So if someone orders, like we there's nothing for us to do. It goes from the IT system to the warehouse. From the warehouse inventory, we know how much to order from the producer. So those things don't take too much time. I think one of the things we learned, and I don't think this applies to a lot of people, but we knew we couldn't win we found out we couldn't win the marketing race against you, against, for instance, Feed, that's in France. And we decided not to continue that battle to pay Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube to have ads there, and really rely on word of mouth. So that the one hand, it takes away an opportunity to become larger, to maybe have a larger impact. But also they are funded to the tune of 10 million, so they can just keep on paying Facebook until we're out of money. So we really rely on word of mouth, on like providing a good service, and maybe growing a bit slower, but growing profitably, being able to donate, and they're growing more sustainably. Like if Facebook changes their algorithm, then nothing happens for us. Whilst for them, maybe it's bad.
Yeah, there's a period maybe like 2 years ago where I was getting Queal ads left, right, and center. It was like the majority of my Facebook ads were Queal ads. I was like, I already buy Queal. Stop advertising Queal to me. That was pretty nuts.
The top 5 advertisers for Facebook in the year.
Are they?
Yeah, so they went really big.
Is this specifically in the UK or just in general?
No, I think in UK. So I don't know if it's 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but and there was some analytics company, so they take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, they got really up there.
Yeah, I'm interested in this in terms of, is this that they have like some wealthy investors who have given them loads of money up front that they're able to just like burn through, and this is like not been the case for Queal?
Yeah, so I think we definitely, when we started, like my thing I was doing before was writing my master's thesis, and like didn't have. I worked for a startup during my internship, but didn't have much connection. So I think if I had to start over again, I think it would be easier for me to access capital and to sort of kickstart things faster. And we think we're sort of in battle with another Dutch company for sort of the mind space here. I think they might have a bit of a lead on us because they went faster there. I think for you specifically, they came from a background of 15 years of online marketing experience. So that's sort of, probably about the time that all of us have been on the internet. And I think that was how they really got started. They started with personal capital from one of the founders, or maybe multiple of the founders. And then when they really got that going, also added external funding. So I think then by that way, sort of got that ball rolling.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. What top tips would you have for someone who is considering a career in entrepreneurship right now? Would it be something like to do a lot more networking, or what other things do you think recent graduates or current students who are considering entrepreneurship should be like doing to skill up, or like build up their capacity for jumping into entrepreneurship later on?
Yeah, so I think the main takeaway I have from entrepreneurship is to learn by doing. So if you're thinking about like a large company that you want to build that changes the world in X, Y, or Z way, then think about what's the minimal viable product, one of the terms that goes around. But like, what's the smallest thing you can do to test this idea, to really get it out into the world? So for example, for Queal, we started with the clear bags that we bought at like a wholesaler. Where we put Queal in ourselves and shipped it to like the very first customers to get feedback on the flavor and stuff like that. But I think that really was the way to start and to know what to change. So we went to a lab and we developed it and made thousands of kilos of product. But then every one of those customers had a very big insulin spike, so they got a lot of like sugar. There was a lot of sugar in the product, for instance. Then we would have found out, and we were left with 950 kilos of Queal, for instance. So I think it's like getting your thing out into the world is the one at both very difficult, because you're sort of you're vulnerable. You're saying, this is me, I made this. It's probably very like crappy, but hopefully good in one way. But yeah, that's the way to get feedback and know what people want, because I think we a lot of times we don't know what people want, and maybe if we ask them, of course you have different ways of interviewing, but we still don't know exactly. And we do know like what they're buying or what they're clicking on or where they're staying on a website. So yeah, I think that's like making something and then measuring if that's helping.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I think, and you also asked if there's something with networking or doing other stuff like that. I think there also maybe the same applies, but if you have something that you're doing, it is way easier to network. Like you're interesting because you do X, Y, and Z in your specific space. Whereas if you come in and say like, oh, I'm interested in something, and then there's nothing that you can maybe add of value. Like, of course, it can be very interesting conversation. But today I was talking to a guy who started a blog writing about psychedelic research, and like it was really cool. Like I said, oh, I read the things he wrote and it was really interesting. But if he was a random student and said like, oh, can I speak to you? I was like, yeah, but why would I find you interesting from everyone? And again, that what you've written doesn't need to be very good, but if you have something out there, I think that helps, and that you can use Squarespace to make an easy website, or yeah, I think the barrier to putting something out there is quite low. So that would be yeah, my main tip, to like just do it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I definitely empathize with the like being afraid or being like vulnerable, like being afraid of being vulnerable feeling. This has like always been a barrier for me personally, of wanting to put things out there and knowing intellectually that I should just like put something rubbish out there, get feedback, and just like improve it. But that initial jump is very scary. But yeah, it's cool to hear that you advocate for this and just like, let's go for it. Cool. I think we have a question from Iham. I'm sure I mispronounced that.
Hey, yeah, it's Aham. But yeah, kind of following on from that, kind of barriers to get into entrepreneurship. Do you find that like as startups grow, it's hard to like keep them EA aligned? Because like from what you said, I get the impression that kind of as the company grows, maybe you lose control, and like kind of business interests inevitably take over, and maybe a lot of your altruistic impact becomes maybe more like tokenistic, like I think you said, like for show a bit more. And is that something you're finding for Queal, or do you think you're about to keep those kind of values?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question. Think that for Queal specifically, I've been able to sort of keep my vision alive and to have the way I'm looking at things be part of the DNA of the company. And the interesting thing is that my co-founder, he likes what I'm doing with EA, but he doesn't care that much. He's like more focused on himself, and that's yeah, personal like reasons, I guess, for him, not like finding this interesting or wanting to do something with this. But I think that because we're both the owners of the company, so we started it together, I've been able to keep that alive, and he's definitely on board with that. But I can imagine that, say you go larger, you have a board of directors, you have advisors, and they probably the thing on their mind is maximizing profit. And there, yeah, maybe the good thing that you're doing first was something that was like top of mind, but then became something that went to the side. Yeah, I think to keep it aligned, like one way possibly to do it is to have to be part of the company DNA, so that it like can't leave it. And maybe it's part of the product or sort of the way the product is promoted. But I think that's difficult. On the other hand, like say that would fall away and you would be maximizing profits, then think for what I said is where I think I have the most impact is in terms of donating. So then maybe like upping your founder's pledge, saying I'll donate a larger percentage in the case of a sale, which then maybe happens if they're investors. I think maybe that's a way to offset that a bit. But yeah, I think it is difficult if others aren't aligned. Maybe one last thing is that I think there are EA aligned investors. So that could also be a way of looking at it, to say some funds are EA aligned or have some mission that I think fits with what we're trying to do with as effective altruists.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, we've arrived at 8:30. So unless anyone has any questions, perhaps we will wrap up. Cool. Yeah, so first of all, huge thank you, Floris, for this talk. It's been super interesting to hear more about Queal and entrepreneurship in general. And I'm very excited for the future of Queal and also Blossom. That sounds super cool. I definitely personally am very excited to learn more about psychedelics and think, there's an exciting future for the field. And yeah, so for the people left in the room, if you could please fill in this feedback form for how we can improve these types of speaker events, that would be awesome. And also next week, we've mentioned in this talk a few times, Against Malaria Foundation, and the CEO of Against Malaria Foundation will be coming to give us a talk next week. So Rob Mather will be talking. So please feel free to come along and see what Rob has to say about what AMF are up to. So that'll be quite fun. But yeah, again, thank you very much, Floris. It's been super cool to see you. Oh, there's a cat. Every good talk has a cat. So thank you, Tristan's cat, as well. And yes, thank you all for joining. It's been really nice, and I hope we all get to see each other again in the future at some point.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you guys for the great questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Bye, everyone.